Good evening, YouTubers. This is Jerry Diamond with How to Get Out of Babylon. And it's a dreary, nasty, humid, damp, wet, cold day. What better day than to sit around a fire, which I don't have, and read? So I might start here and I might go over to the Airstream and start up a fire, do a video on that, and then read over there. I can't see my breath yet, but it's just nasty cold. And I was going to split wood today, but I don't feel like even going out unless I go over to the Airstream. Anyway, so I'm going to read the start on this. I've been wanting to do this for some time, and there's two reasons for this. One, it's a children's book, and it has a lot of good lessons. It's basically a series of books. I think it's 8 or 9 books, and it is, in essence, about the New World Order, and you'll get that very clearly. The message comes across very powerfully. Tracking and everything, and deception and spiritual bondage, all those things. And this second reason I want to talk about it is because it's about spiritual warfare. And I see a lot of spiritual demonic influence in people's lives more and more lately. People that I've known for years being extremely influenced, whatever, controlled, however you want to say it, by demonic forces and dynamic forces. They're all denomination oriented, right? Anyway, I have a friend that Jack that says, because it's dynamic. But the 100th time she said it, I corrected her, and then that night I thought, wait a minute, denominations are where they all come from, most of them. So, dynamic is not a bad play on words there. So, but I'm seeing a great deal of that in people's lives. People that I've known for years, like I said, and people that used to I would consider a friend, but they don't consider me their friend at all now. And that's happened 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I don't know, about 8, 9 times. People that I've been very close to suddenly treating me like an enemy and disgusted with me. And so I can see that it's very much, you'll see the depiction here is that these snakes bite into them. And we'll get into that. Okay, so I'm going to start reading to see how far we get. Once there was a magic bicycle that found a boy. Although the boy didn't know it was magic at first, little by little he discovered some of the bicycle's secrets. John Kramer was an ordinary boy who lived in Centerville. Note that, Centerville, middle of everything. Because John's parents had died when he was very young, he lived with his Uncle Bill and Aunt Betty and their 3 daughters, Susan, Lois, and Catherine. John usually liked living with his aunt and uncles and cousins. After being with them for so many years, it felt like as if they were the only family he had ever had. After all, he could barely remember his real parents. John was honest and worked hard at school and at home. Most people liked him, but like all children, he had his faults, especially one that is common to many children his age. He was careless at times. He did things without thinking. One spring day, he was careless, and it cost him his new 10-speed bicycle that he had received for Christmas. While riding his bike home from school that day, he saw a darkly dressed man putting a poster in the toy store window. Bicycle race, bicycle safety contest, best looking bicycle contest. Cash prizes, $100, $75, $50 in each contest. Big day, Friday, June 6th. First day after school is out. Place, Centerville School. Sponsored by Goliath Toys. Giants of fun. Goliath Toys. John was so excited that he raced over to tell Roger Darrell the news. But when he got to Roger's house, instead of parking his bike on the front lawn, he left it in the driveway behind the Darrell's car. While he was telling Roger the news, Roger's older brother, Rick, got in the car and started to leave. Rick backed the car down the driveway. The noise was terrible. When they finally got the bike loose from under the car, it looked like a large blue and black pretzel with 3 bites taken out of it. The poor 10-speed was beyond repair. No one needed to tell John that he'd been careless. When he took the bike home, his Uncle Bill just looked at it and shook his head sadly. John felt awful. I hope you aren't considering asking for another bicycle, Uncle Bill warned. Sometimes I think you just don't have any sense at all. John looked down at his smashed bike, feeling the angry glare of his uncle. Susan, Lois, and Catherine stood in a little silent circle around the broken bicycle. They felt bad, too. I guess I was just too excited about telling Roger the news of the bike contests, John said weakly. Being excited is no excuse. You should know better. You'll have to make money to buy your own next bicycle. John almost began to cry, but had already felt bad about the bicycle. But now he felt even worse. Uncle Bill was a sheriff for Centerville. He was friendly to everyone and well respected for being fair. But if you broke the law, he was a hard man. Sometimes John felt as if his uncle was too much like the sheriff at home. Fortunately, like a true friend, Roger shared his bike with John when he could. He even agreed to let John used his bike for the safety contest. But since only one person could ride Roger's bike in the race, John figured he'd be left on the sidelines watching someone else speed across the finish line. One Sunday afternoon, after dinner, about a week after John's bicycle was smashed, he and Roger rode out to the Centerville dump. They'd like to go to the dump once in a while to see if there was any interesting trash. Roger had found a whole electric train set at the dump once. The engine didn't work, but after he and John tinkered with it a week and read books on electricity, they fixed it. The dump was 2 miles out of town on a dirt road full of bumps and ruts. Roger let John ride on the handlebars until they went into a really big hole because Roger couldn't see with John sitting in front of him. John fell and Roger couldn't brake in time, so he jumped off. The bike landed on top of John's legs. The pedal sprocket ripped John's pants and cut a nasty gash in his leg. John limped the rest of the way to the dump, worried about what his uncle would say about the ripped pants. The dump smelled worse than usual. It had rained the night before, and all the garbage was wet and moldy. But there was an even worse smell than the rotten garbage. "Smells like something's dead, doesn't it?" Roger said. "Like a dead dog or cat." "Yeah," John agreed, smelling the deadness. Roger parked his bike, and the boys began to explore. Feeling the pain in his leg, John was determined not to be careless again. He was especially careful as he stepped among the broken bottles, sharp tin cans, and boards with nails. He used an old table leg to poke through the trash where rats, snakes, and spiders might be hiding. In fact, John was trying to turn over an old smelly mattress when a large rat jumped out, ran between his feet, and disappeared under a smashed cardboard box. John yelled out in surprise, more than fear. Roger ran over. "Just a rat," John said. He felt silly that his heart was beating so hard. Roger nodded and pointed down to something. John saw it too. Inside a hole in the mattress was a nest of baby rats. The boys bent down for a better look. The baby rats, only a few days old, looked like squirming pieces of pink bubblegum covered with white fuzz. "You must have scared the mother," Roger said. "She sort of scared me too. I'm glad she wasn't hungry. She might come back. Think we should kill him?" He pointed at the nest of the babies. "Nah," John said. "Rats belong in a dump. They don't really hurt nothing here. Besides, they're so little. And hey, look." Through another hole in the mattress, John saw what looked like the spokes of a bicycle wheel. He pulled up a corner of the mattress slowly, not wanting to disturb the baby rats. Roger pulled off an old refrigerator door. It was a bicycle. Deep inside, John knew someone had answered his most secret wish. After pulling off an old chair and a busted crate of rotten lettuce, Roger grabbed the wheel and dragged the bicycle from the pile of trash. Suddenly he screamed. John whirled around and saw his friend stumble backwards, pointing at the bicycle. A large black snake was curled around the seat and stretched all the way to the handlebars. A horrible dead smell filled the air. John picked up the table leg and stepped toward the snake while Roger scrambled to his feet. "Careful," Roger whispered. John didn't need to be reminded. The head of the snake, which had been resting on the handlebars, suddenly rose into the air, almost like a cobra. John stepped back. "I've never seen a snake like that before," John said. On the snake's throat was a strange marking, a white X inside a white circle. John stared at the mysterious mark. A fear began to grow in him that he hadn't ever felt before. The dead smell seemed suffocating. "I've never seen one like it either," Roger said. "I wonder if it's making that horrible smell. It's almost like it wants us to leave the bicycle alone." "No," John said. I want the bike. Maybe I can fix it up." "But how are you going to?" The snake hissed and flicked a blood-red tongue at John. Roger stepped back another step, but John stood still, staring into the angry red eyes. The snake seemed to be daring him to step closer. John raised his arm with all his strength, threw the table leg at the head of the snake. In the hiss of black lightning, the snake slithered off the bicycle, disappearing into the trash. Sorry, it's cold. I'm talking fast. Both boys looked silently at the bike, amazed at how fast the snake had escaped. John suddenly felt himself breathe. "Let's get away from the trash," John said, grabbing the handlebars. He might still be close. Roger helped John pull the bike about 30 feet away to a flat, clear place. "At least we can see if he comes back," Roger said, looking back at the junk pile. The snake with the circled X had scared him in an unusual way, too. John looked back at the trash. He could still hear the strange way the snake hissed. The dead smell, which had been strong, lingered only faintly in the air now. "Well, let's see what we have," John said, finally turning to the rescued bicycle. It seemed huge because it was an old balloon tire bicycle. Compared to Roger's thin, lightweight 10-speed, the old red bike seemed like a clumsy and rather ugly antique. "What a mess," Roger said, "and it weighs a ton." "It's not so bad," John said, hoping right away he could fix it up in time for the race and safety contests. With all the fixing in the world, John knew the bike would never win the best-looking contest. "But look at it," Roger said. The old red bicycle did seem in sad shape. The big balloon tires looked as if they'd been flat for years. The rubber was cracked and full of holes. Several of the spokes dangled. The thick frame, although basically straight, was full of dents and rusted spots. The handlebars were bent. The chain was rusted solid. A broken headlight stared off crookedly. An old rubber horn was rusted to the handlebars. When John squeezed the bulb, air hissed weakly through two small holes in the rubber. Next to the right hand grip was a small gear-changing lever connected to a cable which ran halfway down the frame, then ended, going nowhere. Near the other hand grip, the old rearview mirror hung. Sorry. Finger's not too nimble. Upside down, the rearview mirror was hanging upside down by one rusty bolt. All the glass was gone except one small sliver stuck to the edge. On the rear wheel frame, an ancient light generator looked like a rusted metal bottle. The seat looked as if it had been chewed by 24 rats. The springs beneath the seat were brittle from rust. The old fenders were mangled so badly they seemed beyond repair, but on the faded red middle bar of the frame, in curving white letters surrounded by a white border, the name remained. Spirit Flyer. What a mess, Roger repeated. It looks as if it's been through a war. Nothing's perfect, John said, but besides, I need a bike. You don't mean you're going to try to fix that old thing? I need a bike, John said again, at least until I win the race. A safety contest. They don't have enough money to buy a new bike. You're really dreaming, John said as John picked up the bike. The kickstand was rusted in the up position, so John held it steady, already figuring out how he could make it rideable. It's not that heavy, John said, and began pushing it. It's sturdy, that's all. He grunted and pushed harder. The black flat tire skidded across the dirt. It won't even roll, Roger said. I told you it was impossible. It's just a chain, John replied. It's too stiff from rust. The back wheel can't turn. John laid the bike down and walked back to the junk pile. A few months later, he turned with the broken handle of the refrigerator door. He carefully pushed the handle between the chain and the front sprocket. After 5 minutes of prying and tapping, he worked the chain off the front sprocket, then the rear sprocket, so the wheel was free to roll. Even with the wheels rolling, the 2-mile push back into town made John wonder if he should have left the old bike with the rest of the junk. His arms ached and he was covered with sweat by the time they reached the street. Oh no, John groaned. Roger didn't have to ask why. Pedaling down the street toward them was Barry Smedlow and his sleek new 10-speed, a smirk already spreading across his face. Barry rode by, staring at the old red bike, then circled back for another look. All right, I don't know. Hope I can finish the chapter. We tried to do it with lights out, but a lot of times I break it up, long chapters, and do 2 short sections of short chapters. But let me see how long I got. I didn't even look at this, so this goes on for another 5 pages. I ain't doing it. Okay, I got 1, 2, 2.5 pages. I can do that. Okay, one way or another, I'll finish it. Where did you dig up that old heap of junk? The dump's in the other direction, he whined. They began laughing. John and Roger almost covered their ears because Barry Smedlow had a peculiar high-pitched laugh that sounded like a sick donkey with hiccups. People avoided telling him jokes because of it, but that never stopped Barry. He liked to laugh, especially at things that weren't funny. He had tripped Roger when they were in 4th grade and went into hysterics because even though Roger fell and sprained his arm. Since Roger couldn't prove that Barry had tripped him, Barry never got into trouble. Barry did things like that all the time, pulling chairs out from under people, yanking hair. And one of his favorite tricks was pulling out whatever he had in his nose and wiping it on the other students' homework. But somehow he always avoided getting into trouble. He was just sneaky enough not to get caught, and if a teacher questioned him, he could lie for hours looking as innocent as a kitten. Since Barry's father was a school principal and teachers didn't want problems, Barry was always declared innocent. We just came from the dump, Roger said. Why would we want to go back? Shh, John whispered to Roger, but it was too late. I knew it, Barry screeched. A dump bike for a dummy. Hey, dumpy boy, dumper. John just kept pushing the old bike, a bit upset at Roger for telling Barry it came from the dump, even though Roger was his best friend. He thought Roger talked too much at times. He also felt embarrassed because the bike did look like it, old and next to Barry and Roger's bikes. It sort of looks like a fat old cow with arthritis, dumper. Barry yelled. Is that a new form of exercise, bike pushing? You're sweating like a pig. Probably smells as bad as that garbage bike you got there. John stopped. When John stopped, Barry stopped pedaling, afraid to get any closer. Even though Barry was older and bigger, he didn't like to fight unless he had his gang, the Cobra Club, with him. Right after Christmas, Barry had started the Cobra Club. Barry was the president, vice president, and treasurer. Each member had to pay dues every month to Barry. Besides that, they had to paint their bicycles black and put a special decal of a cobra's head on the front, right below the handlebars. On special occasions, the club members wore black pants and black jackets with an emblem of a cobra's head with his mouth open, the fangs oozing a drop of poison. John had been the first person Barry had asked to join his club, but John refused. He didn't want to be in a club with Barry as the dictator, telling everyone what to do. 6 boys did join. One of the advantages of that was that the club members could swim in the Beth Smedlow's swimming pool, and Mrs. Smedlow always had cookies, potato chips, ice cream, and sodas for the club meetings. John thought Barry was just buying friendships because he couldn't make any by himself. And one time he told the whole Cobra Club that he thought the black pants and jackets made them look like undertakers. All the other kids laughed and began calling them the Dead Men's Club. Ever since then, Barry had held a grudge against John and his friends, trying to think of ways to get even. But John knew he wouldn't try anything without his gang. After John stopped pushing the old bike, he turned and stared calmly at Barry. Barry looked nervous, then brayed out a laugh, stopping short when he saw the serious expression on John's face. By the way, I heard your poor little bike got run over, Barry said, mimicking baby's voice. I thought of calling your Undertaker Club to help me bury it, John said, then smiled sweetly at the bigger boy. Roger laughed, and so did John, as a dark frown spread across Barry's face. He raised his hand and shook his finger at John. You watch out who you're calling names, Barry said through clenched teeth, or you won't even have that junk heap of a bike to ride. We have ways of dealing with a smart mouth like you. John laughed at the bigger boy's threat, then began pushing the old red bike again. Suddenly a rock thudded into John's back. John turned and charged, but Barry was already pedaling away. John saw that it was useless, especially since his leg still hurt from the cut. Roger jumped on his bike and pedaled after the fleeing loudmouth. Barry rounded the corner with Roger gaining on him. Then the bikes disappeared behind a house. John picked up the spirit flower and pushed it the rest of the way home. End of chapter 1. Okay, I made it. At least we got to start on it. Okay. Oh, I don't know if I'd sit here and talk for a few minutes. Drink some coffee, warm my fingers up. Figure out what the hell am I going to do for the rest of the day. Good day to start a fire. I think that's probably what I'll do. I don't know. Let's see. Or my pinky's up, sorry. So who's on? Let's see here. I saw Zeppelin Kaboom, probably the only one that's signed in. Yep. Hello, Zeppelin Kaboom. I guess that's it. So, yeah, between my throat being not in its best, I'm going to just bug out here. Bug out Brad. Red feather, canned butter, amazing, whatever. Okay. So, yeah, the book is about spiritual warfare and the New World Order. And I'll have more comments as it goes on, but in this first chapter we see, so Don has this thing of carelessness, gets his bike run over, destroyed, so he goes to the dump, and they find a bicycle there. Or should we say it finds them. And there's a snake on the handlebars, a cobra-looking snake with a white X inside a white circle on its throat. And then we see the Barry Smedlow's Cobra Club. So there'll be more of that in the future. So we'll see more of both of those memes, I guess, whatever. Insignias, icons. Yeah. Okay, so anyway. And Joan was brave enough to stand up to the snake and made it go away. So he was able to get the bicycle. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to get it. Okay, well, hope somebody will listen to this, somebody with children. If you know any people with children, you might see if they want to listen to it, the rest of the stories, because I don't know how much I'll read. I hope to finish this first book, and then maybe people get interested in reading it on their own or reading it to their children. My entire family read it years ago, and we've never gotten back to it, so this is the first time since, I don't know, maybe 10, 15, 20 years since we've read it, so I don't know what year they were published, but I guess I could check that for a minute here. I think they're fairly new when we first read them. (1983). (1983), that's a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, isn't it? Denver, 1983. About 3 years after my 2 or 3 years after my first daughter was born, my oldest child, Anna. I think 81. And my son born in 84. So yeah, so 83 I don't think we read them that early because we would have read them to the children. So I'm guessing probably 86, 87, maybe before when we discovered them. I don't know. No way to tell. Just memories. Vague memories at that. So, okay. Well, good night, everybody. Or goodbye. Let's see. Still just one person on, yeah. All right, well, farewell. I'll try to read more. Maybe not today, but if I go over to the Airstream and warm it up over there, I might do one over there. So, all right, goodbye.